Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Job Search Radio on webtalkradio.net. This is a show where I interview a subject matter expert about some element of job hunting, because I believe that job hunting doesn't have to be hard, difficult, painful, or take so long, because to me, I understand the skills needed to find a job are different than the ones needed to do a job. So I want to keep bringing you information about those skills that you can develop so your search just doesn't have to last so long. My guest on this show is Tammy Kabell, who's the founder and CEO of Career Resume Consulting, an executive career firm nationally known for helping six-figure clients land jobs fast. And before you start thinking that this is going to be just for six-figure professionals, it is not. This is going to be for anyone. She's been featured as an expert multiple times in the Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, Monster, Career Builder, The Ladders, and many other online publications and print publications. Tammy, welcome to Job Search Radio. Great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. It's really, really great to be here. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great to have you on. And I know when I talk to job hunters who come to me for coaching, when they think of marketing themselves, they tend to think LinkedIn these days. But they are missing a huge universe of opportunities outside of LinkedIn. So I thought we would do a show focused on those elements of marketing so that people get some balance. So if they were thinking of beginning a marketing campaign for themselves outside of LinkedIn, how do you think they should begin the process? Where should they start off?
Sure. I know that LinkedIn has become very popular, especially in the last couple of years. It's gained a lot of popularity. It is essential to have a great, robust LinkedIn profile, but it doesn't start with a LinkedIn profile. It actually starts with all of your written materials, and that's going to be your resume, and if you choose to use it, also a cover letter or an introductory letter. And the main thing to think about when you're putting together your resume, and there's actually a couple of things. One is that most all resumes are chronological. They look exactly the same. So you really want to stand apart. You know, one of the things that makes a marketing campaign successful is its uniqueness, its differentiation, its novelty. So what you want to do, what I've found to be most successful, is actually to write a skills-based or functional resume that's a one-page snapshot or feature. Think of it as a 30-second commercial that is written persuasively rather than written academically. And what I mean by that is that you're using marketing syntax or using persuasive salesy words, really, even if you're not in a sales position, even if you're in an IT, engineering, accounting position, using the sales type of words to get people's attention and to get them to pick up the phone and give you a call really does make a difference in the amount of phone calls that you get. And so it really starts with putting together a great functional resume that explains how you can affect the company's bottom line, what makes you different than everyone else. When you think about marketing, most people don't know a whole lot about marketing except for marketing professionals. But there's something called a USP, or a unique selling proposition, or you might even call it a value proposition, where you have, as a job seeker, a unique combination of skills and experience and education that nobody else has. Your achievements, when you wrap all of that together, nobody else has that. So you need to explain what you can do for somebody.
I agree with you. And when I hear functional resume, I get nervous because I know people tend to send out functional resumes, and to me they're a waste of time in that they don't really tell me when someone had this achievement. And I know my clients look at functional resumes as being, okay, what's this person trying to hide in their background? Now, I believe you take a functional resume and you can use a significant piece of it in a chronological resume. But to only do functional leaves, to me, the job hunter open to problems, certainly with the applicant tracking system and certainly with third-party recruiters and corporate recruiters who believe the job hunter is trying to hide something. So I heard you talk about chronological earlier, but I want to make sure the audience is clear. You're not talking about only sending out a functional resume, are you?
No. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that from my experience, and I know that your experience, your background is in recruiting, and corporate recruiters and also contracted recruiters do not like functional resumes. But what I've found is that my clients get their first phone call more from a functional resume, even from recruiters and HR folks. And they say, I love you, hate the resume. I would love to get a chronological. Can I get this in a chronological version? So what we do in my organization is build a backup chronological to send when they ask for a chronological. However, you brought up a very interesting point in that it doesn't necessarily work well when you're applying online to posted positions, which is what 92% of the population does as the main form of looking for a job. And what I recommend is bypassing what's posted and actually sending a functional resume in a hard copy form to the person that would be your boss. Now, that might be a little controversial, but it actually does work, and you get a higher response rate than applying to jobs online. So
I have no disagreement with that as a tactic. It works beautifully. On previous shows and in articles I've written, I've said never, ever apply for a job if you can avoid it through the applicant tracking system. Always try and find the human being who's responsible for hiring for your position rather than an automated system that's scanning for keywords in particular places and frequencies. And if it comes in a little too late in the resume, you don't think the system doesn't think that the person's strong enough in that. On and on and on with nonsensical big data approaches to candidate evaluation. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Always go directly to the hiring manager when possible. Mm-hmm. So
and we do find those hiring managers through LinkedIn, but a resource that I'd like to give you and your listeners to build a chronological that I consider to be a backup resume in case anybody asks for it is visualcv.com, if you're not familiar with that. It is a free online, it's a website, visualcv.com, allows you to build a chronological resume from the ground up, and it has a Save as PDF button. So you can build it online to increase your online profile and your online presence, and you can save it as a PDF and send it to a recruiter or someone in HR who asks for it. What I found is that a majority of the hiring managers, if you send something to them first thing and don't, I know that recruiters have a significant amount of the opportunities out there. So with the recruiting community, always have something in backup chronologically. But for the hiring manager in the company themselves, rarely do they ask for a chronological resume. They usually pick up the phone to find out more about you. But as a recruiter, it's very hard to sell someone if you don't know the full, complete story. And that's why the chronological is important for a recruiter. And same for an HR person if they don't know a tremendous amount about the position that they're trying to fill. They want it chronologically so that they can understand your complete story. I've found that you get better response with a functional resume because it looks different. It is different.
And for my audience, you can also take the hybrid approach.
Yes.
In fact, a functional resume is the first half to three-quarters of a chronological resume, and then expand on it into traditional chronological format so that both a reader and the system can see the verbiage consistently throughout the document. But again, my way doesn't have to be the way you do it. Tammy's way works. So pick the one that you're comfortable with. And the important thing is you're out there marketing yourself outside of LinkedIn. And I love the suggestion of just mailing the resume to the hiring manager.
Yeah. I find that LinkedIn is a good way to find those hiring managers. You can also look up data.com to find hiring managers, but you have to make sure that that information is up to date. And then there's also a good resource in zoominfo.com. That can help you find the companies that you're looking for. And you can put in your search criteria, and it'll give you a list of companies that meet your search criteria.
And hiring managers within those firms. And although ZoomInfo and zoominfo.com is a service that ostensibly charges for access, if you open up your Microsoft Outlook to them scanning it, you can use their service to find individual hiring managers for free. And they'll have limitations on that.
Usually I have people use their free service of finding the companies, but not use their service of finding the hiring managers. And I use LinkedIn and data.com to find the hiring managers.
Interesting. And it all works, folks. Find the one that works best for you. And my reminder is if you open up Outlook, just don't do it at work.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And also, the writing persuasively piece can't be understated because nobody writes persuasively. Everybody writes very academically in resume speak. And I find that if you write in complete sentences, and even in that first summary paragraph when you're explaining what you can do for your reader, then if you put it in first person, people can read it faster and they can absorb it better, and that means they'll read more. And so what I like to do is, even though it's in first person, it's not all about me. It's all about you, the reader. It's all about the employer. What can I do for you? And my combination of skills and experience and achievements in education can bring this to your bottom line. And then wrap it all up, state it very matter-of-factly, very strongly as to what you can do. And then using a marketing principle called a call to action, you can use that as the last sentence in that summary paragraph at the top of your resume by saying, let's have a conversation about what my abilities can do for you. Or, if this makes sense to you, if you need a strong leader in your operations to take your company to the next level, let's have a conversation. And so it, again, increases that likelihood of a response when you're using multiple marketing techniques.
And that's terrific. And we're going to be back with more from Tammy Kabell in just a moment. But first I want to provide you with my job search insider tip for this show, which is what I call the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary for yourself at the time you get a job offer. So this is a tactic that so many thousands of people have used over the years, and it works like a charm. And it starts off with the premise of you know the salary for which you would say no to. So let's say you receive an offer, it's a touch low, or it's significantly low. Either way, it can work. Now, I'm a believer that in negotiation you have to do a little bit of acting. So you might respond by going, and you start to get a little quiet on them, just like I was doing there. So it's, I'm going to need a little time to think about this. I think your offer may be a touch low, but I love the firm and I love the opportunity. Can I get back to you tomorrow? Now, when tomorrow comes, you're going to have a series of questions that you might ask them. That you're going to start off with all the non-salary questions that you have first, so that you make sure that those points are covered. And then you get to the salary question, and assuming that what you've heard in the non-salary discussions is satisfactory, you get to the salary question, and you start off again by saying, I really like this opportunity. Could you do a touch better on the offer? And, sometimes they'll increase the offer. Sometimes they'll respond by saying, we'd really like to, but, our budget is such that we really can't do better. Now, at that point, you have a choice. You might try negotiating benefits. You might try negotiating vacation time or other perks related to the job. But at the end of the day, you need to know whether or not that salary is one that you would accept, or if from the answers to your other questions they've improved things sufficiently that you feel that you can say yes, or you're ready to walk away. But at the end of the day, most firms are willing to increase the offer a little bit to try and get you on board, because the cost of losing you and starting from scratch often is way too painful for them. So that's my advice for this show. Let's come back to Tammy Kabell and continue our conversation. So I heard you talking about first-person salesmanship. I'm going to circle back about a minute in our conversation. And could you give us an example of how someone might use, quote, sales language versus traditional resume speak?
That's a very good question. You can say things in writing that you could never get away with in person. So, for instance, you could say things like, my initiatives, my cost-cutting initiatives or cost control initiatives have been wildly successful. You would never say that in an interview. But just using that, if you want to call it flowery language or salesy language, that actually works. Or, something, if you use the type of dramatic, like I catapulted revenue instead of I just increased revenue, or I shot revenue up 16%, instead of I increased revenue. It's those little things that actually get somebody's attention, make your argument more persuasive, and compel them to act. It compels them to pick up the phone and give you a call. And that's really what you
motivate them.
Yes, exactly. And that's what marketing is about, is motivating someone to take an action, whatever action you want them to take. You also have to remember that a resume and even your LinkedIn profile and networking is all designed not to get you the job, but to get you the first phone call. That's all it's designed to do. And so there's no reason to put every little single bit of information like a history book into a resume or even into a LinkedIn profile. Now, I do believe that a LinkedIn profile should be longer and more robust than your resume, because the resume can be a 30-second commercial and the LinkedIn profile can be more like a 30-minute infomercial. But it still shouldn't be so long that it overwhelms someone. They want to really get to, how you've affected the bottom line.
And then you were talking about the call to action. Could you give a couple of examples of a call to action? And would this be in the resume or in a cover email that the resume, that accompanies the resume?
Great question. I do request, I always put two calls to action, actually, both in the summary paragraph at the very end of the paragraph to sum it all up. And then also, what I've found in my experience is that, it takes 2 or 3 hours to put together a really good, concise cover letter. And if you want to, it takes even longer if you want to make it very relevant to what you're applying for. But what I've found is that a more effective technique is to put a handwritten note on the side of your resume. It takes 5 minutes, very concise, and it gets a better response rate than a cover letter. And when you look at the surveys of anywhere from 65 to 73% of people don't even read cover letters. They just put them aside and they look right at the resume. It makes sense to put just a very quick handwritten note. So an example of the handwritten note call to action would be, Dear so-and-so, I've been researching your company and I would love to talk with you about joining your team. Please call me this week. Sincerely, your first name. And that last sentence is a call to action with a deadline. It's kind of like when you see those infomercials or the commercials that say, act within the next 30 minutes, call now, and you'll also receive, and then they give you an incentive to call now. Or the first
I was so tempted to do one of those voices.
Yeah, exactly. But if you do that, it again increases the likelihood of a response. And so at the end of the summary paragraph, you may say, if you're in the market for a successful IT manager to lower your IT costs, I would love to talk with you about joining your team. Or
no, I'm not in the. I don't want to lower my costs. I want to increase my costs. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make it as universal as possible, but still talking specifically to the person that would be your hiring manager. So keeping your audience in mind when you're putting together the resume and the LinkedIn profile, and also your networking. So let's talk about networking a little bit, because that's another way to create a marketing campaign other than a LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profile is really considered to be pull marketing. You've got people looking at it. You want them to respond after they've looked at it. But then there's push marketing. In other words, there's you contacting your friends and you contacting people within the company that you want to work for. And also you sending out resumes if you want to send out a letter campaign or a resume campaign, hard copy. And what I always recommend is that if you're going to ask contacts to help you, which I do believe is really important because a lot of times it is who you know and not what you know when it comes to a job search, what I recommend is that you have a really great introduction, which I call an audio business card, that says three things. It says, this is the type of company I'm looking for. In other words, this is what city I'm looking in, this is the size of the company, and maybe even these are the industries that I'm particularly interested in. And if you don't have industries, and if you don't really care what size company, then I would say small to mid-sized businesses, because right now companies that are 10 to 50 million in annual revenue are the ones that are generating the most new jobs or creating job growth rather than just filling because people leave or attrition. So you want to say what type of company you're looking for. Then you want to say what problems you solve. Not necessarily saying I'm looking for a director of operations position or I'm looking for an IT manager position. Because when you do that, the person you're talking to or emailing immediately thinks, do I know of an open IT manager position? And if they don't, then their brain shuts down. They can't help you. But if you say, here are the problems that I solve, and then the antithesis of that are, here is my expertise. Here's what I'm good for, and here are the gaps that I fill, and here's what I can do for a company, something like that. But make it very short and sweet. Then you say, who do you know that I should be talking with? So you might, for instance, if you are looking for, let's say, a marketing manager position for a software company or a technology company in the Kansas City market, you might say, I trust that you're doing well. This might be an email. So, hi, Steve, I trust that you're doing well. Just wanted to let you know I'm in a full-time job search right now. I'm currently looking for a small to mid-sized company in the technology field that might have a product or service to offer, but they don't really know how to get it out into the market and compete with some of the really big companies or the well-known name brands. Well, that's really what I can do. That's where I come in. My expertise is taking a product or service conception from inception all the way to rolling it out and making it compete in a big way with some of the big boys in order to get that company on a growth trajectory. Do you know of anybody that I should be talking with, or who do you know that I should be talking to? And just asking that instead of saying, here's my resume, can you pass it along to somebody that you know? That makes people feel obligated, and that's not a comfortable feeling for most people. So
you're absolutely right. It's always better to look for an introduction rather than, can I foist my resume on you and ask you to do me this huge favor by giving it to someone, sticking your neck out for me in front of someone who, I know you don't know enough about what I do, but could you put this resume in front of some people and help me? Doesn't work. No one does it. Absolutely,
Jeff. You're right. And when you're in a networking conversation, it's the same way. You can use this. First, you want to ask the person that you're talking to about themselves, and then you hone your audio business card or your introduction to be relevant to them. So if they happen to be in the agriculture industry and you don't really care what industry you go into, you can say, I'm looking for a small to mid-sized company, possibly in the agriculture industry. So now they're thinking, oh, I know of a small-sized, agriculture company that I can put them in contact with. And then you say, here are the problems I solve. Here are the gaps that I fill. Here's my expertise. Who do you know that I might be talking with? Or if it's the first time you're meeting with somebody, maybe you're just introducing yourself and explaining your expertise, but you don't feel comfortable asking for that name yet because you haven't built enough rapport. That's the time to follow up within a couple of days with a phone call so that you learn more about them, their needs, what they're looking for, then how you can help them, and then you ask, who should I be talking with after you've built a little bit more rapport.
Very nice. And I want to be clear about a term that you've used, which is audio business card.
That's an introduction. It's a different way of introducing yourself rather than just saying, hi, I'm looking for an XYZ position.
And I want to get clear about that just in case the audience wasn't sure, because I've known of services that provide, in effect, an audio introduction, 1 minute of recorded time that you can send to someone. I'm glad you weren't suggesting that because, frankly, the skill of speaking in 1 minute causes many people to get anxious and not present themselves well. It's kind of like the 6-second Vine videos. Once you know there's a limitation, suddenly people start to get nervous. So I'm glad you were clear about this being a basic introduction. Now, we're starting to come up on the end of time with one another today, and I just want to make sure we cover all the points that you want to share with my listeners. So what more do you have? Where should we finish up today?
Sure. I think just to sum up everything, to me, there are 3 main ways to getting that first phone call from a decision maker, from a hiring manager. The first way, and a decision maker actually includes the recruiter or possibly an HR person if it's a bigger company. But a lot of times it can be just the hiring manager, the person who's making the last decision. But to get that first phone call, really it's all of your written materials. So your resume, if you decide to do, I know some people who just do introductory letters and don't do a resume. I'm not a big fan of that, but I know some people that they say it works for them. And so I recommend that handwritten note on the side of a hard copy resume if you're going to mail out a campaign. I found that to be very effective when you combine it with a great online presence. LinkedIn is a piece of that. I think Visual CV can be an effective piece of that. And then finally, number 3 approach is networking and doing that effectively. And when you combine all of those 3 things together, that's really a 3-pronged approach in order to get that first phone call. And that's the phone call that you need because you always want to be judged by a conversation and not by just what's on paper or what's online about you. You want to have a conversation with that employer and start the dialogue going. And that's what's going to sell you better than anything, better than any piece of paper or anything that's online about you. So that's really a summary of what I want to make sure that I get across today.
Beautiful. And I'll remind everyone about the call to action and using the call to action to encourage people to either reach out to you or tell them that you'll be reaching out to them, to continue the conversation or to begin the conversation. All this works beautifully. And Tammy, thank you so much for making time. The information you've given is terrific. How can people reach you about coaching or resume writing?
Sure, Jeff. With my career firm, it's called Career Resume Consulting, and you can go out to my website. There are a lot of free resources out there, from resume samples to how to do an informational interview, a lot of different reports and free resources. And you can go to careerresumeconsulting.com and find all of those free resources there. There's actually a tab on the front page that says free resources. And then also, if you want to call our offices directly, we do work both nationwide and also worldwide. We found that in all English-speaking countries, our approach works. I've worked in 6 different countries abroad, and so this type of marketing does work to get their attention, and then using sales psychology to go around the bases and get to that final job offer, and then negotiate, like you said. I think negotiation's key. And so the office number, if you want to give us a call, is 816-600-2478, and you'll reach our main office line there. Again, careerresumeconsulting.com and 816-600-2478. That's what I got for you today, Jeff. Yeah.
Thank you, Tammy. And folks, we'll be back next time with more advice for you to help make the job search easier. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and I too have content at my website, which is thebiggamehunter.us. Videos, podcasts of this show and my other ones. You can receive a complimentary subscription to either or both of my e-zines about job hunting and hiring. Lots of content to help you with finding work and hiring when you get to that point. So come over to thebiggamehunter.us and go exploring. Also want to mention, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, send me a connection request at linkedin.com/in/thebiggamehunter. I accept connection requests from people worldwide, except if you're a third-party recruiter or kind of look like a spammer to me. I won't do it. Also want to mention to you folks that if you have a question about job hunting, you're not alone. Most people do. But they make the mistake of reaching out to the wrong people. You know, colleagues, friends, family, former managers. You know, people who probably know as little as you do about job hunting, or maybe a little bit more. Instead, reach out to me through liveperson.com, or I'm a job search and career coach